great honor for me to be here to say a few words. You've spent the whole day listening to the many of the excellent technical subjects. Today I want to give you a little bit of background where these technical subjects come from. The title of my talk, as you can see, represents two of the most discussed today entrepreneurs in the world. And since US and China are the two major competing economic powers in the 21st century, it is not surprising that one of them is from the United States, Jeff Bezos of Amazon, and the other one is from China, Alibaba's Jack Ma. Next slide. Jeff Bezos today is probably the richest man on earth, with about $150 billion. By the way, that is more than almost 60% of the world's countries. Most countries don't have that much money. Next one. Alibaba, Jack Ma, is around $40–45 billion, no chump change. It so happens that both of them are the same age, 54. Next slide. Now, what is the singular underlying principle for their business model? Next slide. It's called omnipresence. Next slide. Which means almost any time, any place. Why do I say almost? Next slide. Let me explain to you what this business model could do. For those of you who've been to China, you must have seen these two words, 代教. Next slide. When you're in China, don't do this. Okay? Especially in China, don't do this. Next slide. That's because the punishment for driving drunk is extremely severe. And so with that, a new business model came out. That is, when you drink with one beer only, you can then go on your cell phone, get the app, and find the person to drive for you. Within 5 minutes, he will be at the place where you park your car. This is a completely new model in China, almost in every city. Next slide. So the business model of that is that it has to be anytime, anywhere, in order for both Jack Ma and also Bezos to be successful. Next slide. Now, what is the fundamental physical principle behind this business model? Next slide. Is this big C. This big C stands for, next slide, speed of light. Next slide. Now, until the middle of the 19th century, people don't know very much about what light is. Next slide. And it is an absolute physical limit that the speed of light is very, very fast, but finite. Next slide. Next slide. It is approximately what that number, 299 million meters per second. Next slide. So when you call Hong Kong, when you have the next chance to call Hong Kong, the sound took about that much time before it reaches Hong Kong. It's not instantaneous. That's why I say it's almost instantaneous. Next slide. So Bezos and Jack Ma If there is no speed of light, they could never develop the business that they have. Next slide. So what is light? Next slide. It is, in the ecumenical term, the light, when we call, in ecumenical terms, sometimes we use omnipresence to imply God is everywhere, any moment. Next slide. And there is this famous phrase, let there be light in the Christian faith. Next slide. The story begins around the 19th century, middle of 19th century. A young Scotsman came to Cambridge University's Trinity College. His name is Maxwell. Next slide. Maxwell stood on the big shoulders of Newton. Next slide. And Newton probably wrote the most famous equation in the world. Next slide. F is equal to ma. Force equals to mass times acceleration. And in many business today, in terms of drug designs, it still uses this F is equal to ma. Next slide. What Maxwell did, Maxwell produced the second most famous equation in the world. Next slide. Now, for those of you who have never had a course in differential equation, don't worry about it. Let's go back. Go back. There's one thing in those four equations I want you to remember. There is a C that appears somewhere in there. Next slide. That C, which I emphasize here, is the speed of light. Next slide. And so here's the speed. Next slide. So, what Maxwell has done is to link light with electromagnetism. Next slide. So the modern ecumenical way of saying, talking about light, next slide, is, and the Lord said it, and then there's the Maxwell equation, and then there is light. So, go on. Well, go on. So basically, light now is completely understood in terms of what it is. It is an electromagnetic field. Next slide. And what did it do? Well, because of our understanding of electromagnetism, we can invent things like the telephone or telegraph in the 19th century. Next slide. And also the telephone. Next slide. So, we use the fact that we have the speed of light to call people using its fast speeds, and therefore it's almost beginning to, I can talk to someone in a very far distance almost instantaneously. We all think of it as a trivial thing, but it all depends on the speed of light. Next slide. So by the time the 20th century came around, next slide, you have this crazy thing called the quantum theory. Next slide. And you look at it, you say, gosh, this is so crazy. How can anybody understand it? Next slide. And it was crazy. In 1927, next slide, there was a conference in Belgium where three of the most important scientists came up with an explanation of what quantum mechanics is. Next slide. One of them is called Schrödinger with this famous equation. Next slide. The next one is called Max Born, which is another interpretation. The next slide is Heisenberg with the uncertainty principle. And it was in 1927, next slide, that it was shown that all three methods are precisely the same. Next slide. And because of that, in 1927, the quantum mechanics became a real mechanics that is no more confusion. Next slide. So back to 1945. in this place called Bell Laboratories in Murray Hill, New Jersey. Yay! Okay. Next slide. A major outcome of quantum mechanics, for example, is the discovery of semiconductors. Next slide. These are the three gentlemen who invented semiconductors and transistors. Next slide. And this is the first version of the semiconductors in 1945. Next slide. So the idea is that these individuals who were not here, and three other important people from Texas came through Texas. There's no saying in Texas, they weren't born here, but they got here as soon as they can. Next slide. I think everybody knows these people. Many of us drive to McDermott Road every day. So these are the three people who created, next slide, Texas Instruments. Yay! And then, after Texas Instruments, next slide, this gentleman who invented integrated circuits, IC. Okay? And IC, of course, is a very big deal in Silicon Valley. But also, sometimes it's also not just integrated circuits, but Indians and Chinese. Next slide. So, the world is now ready for a trinity. What is that trinity? Number one, it is a computer. Number two, it is a storage of data. And number three, it is the network. Next slide. So, this is a computer which is now calculating at that speed, compared to the first computer in ENIAC at the University of Pennsylvania, which is at 3K. Next slide. And from storage, it goes from just paper, next slide, to this, next slide, to this, which is an enormously large. Next slide. And also network went from the so-called T1 line to what we have today, next slide, the 4Gs and 5Gs. Someone mentioned that already. Next slide. Next slide. So, now that we have this, the information system is now in my hand, in a cell phone. Next slide. So, omnipresence is now ready. Next slide. 代价 is now ready. Next slide. I want to also show you what quantum mechanics has done. These two gentlemen discovered the magnetic resonance imaging, MRI, which is used all over the hospitals nowadays. Next slide. And you can now look at, using MRIs, to look at, for example, breast cancer data. Next slide. And also in China now, they put the MRI on a large truck and go all over China to do global screening for women breast cancer issues. One of the problems in China is that breast cancer is happening to younger and younger women nowadays. Next slide. This is why my colleague and I call this the, next slide, the omnipresence economy. Next slide. So, once we have the information trinity, it is not it is clearly, you put that all together, you can now push forward with businesses using this model. Next slide. And it is also frightening that what Bezos and Jack Ma have done, they don't create anything. They just create information. They don't make anything. And the wealth nowadays is based on that. Next slide. So what's next? Well, there is this famous graph of how fast a computer can go. And you see at the end, it's beginning to tail off. in the starting about 2010. Next slide. So maybe, next slide, is that quantum computing that was discussed today in the conference, maybe what is going to make a big change. Next slide. I'll just give you one simple explanation of quantum computing. When you're doing computers now, basically you're doing 0 and 1. When you're doing quantum computing, you are doing 0 to 1. Next slide. That 2 1 is called a qubit and not a 0 and 1. So if you look at that, you see that what's happening is that the change is going to be phenomenal. Next slide. If you have 50 qubits, you'll be able to do calculations. Next slide. Next slide. And you'll be able to do calculations that's completely unimaginable. For example, you could actually make artificial intelligence into real intelligence. Next slide. Next slide. And so on. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah, I think we can go on. This is a very important one. All the development that we saw this afternoon, all the discussion is on the top. Namely, it's around terabytes or teraflops. What happens when quantum computing comes in? You will go down to the other level where you're going to be 10 to the 30 power, 10 to the 36 power, and so on. Next slide. In that case, what will be the next generation of Jack Ma and the next generation of Bezos? Next slide. I think destructive technologies is going to come again. It will change the lifestyle of all of us in the next half of the millennium. Next slide. So my worry about the next generation, especially about my granddaughter, is how she's going to face the next generation when the world changes so fast. Thank you.
Hello. Please have ACP Vice President come to stage here. Maggie Mar and Dina Chu come to stage.
今天呢，我们为了表示感谢，会长也要特殊送你一份礼物。那我们会长和副会长已经在台上了，就让他们来颁发这份纪念奖。谢谢您。
We would like to present you a token of our appreciation for your contributions to the Asian American community.
请摄影师留下这珍贵的礼物。好，谢谢，请台下就坐。再次谢谢冯先生。